We've got the headlines coming up.
I'm travelling through Africa on one long epic journey.
You're a princess?
Yes, I am.
Do you get anything like a discount?
Honestly, looks like he's been through hair and makeup.
That's your first lion. Yes!
The Misadventures of Ramesh Ranganathan continues Wednesday at 9 on BBC Two and iPlayer.
Calling all Glastonbury fans.
Get Worthy Farm ready.
With me, Annie.
And me, Nick.
And some very special guests.
Join us for weekly bonus episodes bringing you all the action from the world's best festival.
Sidetracked by Glastonbury. Listen first on BBC Sounds.
Good morning. You're watching Breakfast with Charlie States and Naga Munchetti. Time now is 8:30.
Let's go back to our main story this morning. Last night's first BBC election debate involving leading figures from the main 7 parties in Great Britain.
Now, there was controversy over some of the claims made in the earlier head-to-head between Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer. What about last night? Well, our correspondent Nick Eardley has been working alongside the BBC Verify team to fact-check some of what was said.
Yes, there were a lot of claims in the debate last night, a lot to keep our team of fact-checkers busy here at BBC Verify. Let's start with a claim that's dominated the debate this week.
Angela Rayner and the Labour Party, Keir Starmer confirmed this earlier this week, they are going to put up your taxes by £2,000.
That's a lie.
By £2,000 per working household.
Penny, your government
Well, what is it then,
have raised
Angela?
taxes to
What
the
is
record
it?
level in 70 years.
Yeah,
the last
we have,
Parliament,
and we've hated
26
putting
different
taxes up.
We've looked at this a lot in the last few days, and the figure is misleading because the £2,000 is over 4 years, and the figures the Conservatives have used to calculate it are dubious. Both the Conservatives and Labour are promising not to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT during the next Parliament. Obviously, there's a lot of politics in this too, but when it comes to the facts, that's where we're at. There was also a big claim that cuts are coming when it comes to public spending, whoever gets the keys to number 10.
There's £18 billion of cuts coming down the line, agreed to by Angela Rayner and Penny Mordaunt. The Tories and the Labour both know that they're going to cut public sector investment to come, and that's going to have dramatic consequences on the NHS in the devolved nations.
Let me explain quickly. This figure is based on analysis from the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies. They say that because parties are promising not to put key taxes up or to borrow for everyday spending, and because growth is pretty flat, there just won't be much money to spend. Let me show you something else. Spending is due to go up a small bit, about 1% in real terms, but because some areas are protected, like health and defence, the unprotected areas, like justice, transport and many other things, could face more cuts. That's where the 18 billion figure comes from the IFS. Let's quickly look at 2 other claims. Firstly, this one.
Most of those that come in are not directly productive members of the economy. Most of those that come in are actually dependents.
Here's the graphic. You can see that this one isn't accurate. This is the number of visas granted. The amount of them who are dependents is pretty low. It's about a third. Finally, there was a claim that defence spending was lower now than it was in the last year of the last Labour government in 2009. Here are the numbers. That claim from Nigel Farage is right. As you can see, it was up there in 2010. It's now there a bit down. There is a lot more of this sort of fact-checking on the BBC News website, and we will be here for the rest of the campaign going through all the numbers.
Well, let's talk now to Jonathan Reynolds, who is the Shadow Business Secretary and Labour candidate for Stalybridge and Hyde. Good morning to you, Jonathan Reynolds. Thank you very much for joining us on Breakfast. Shall we start with this £2,000 figure, which has been examined by various fact-checking agencies and bodies? Labour has been very clear, saying it's a lie, and has expressed surprise that the Conservatives keep repeating it. How much will taxes for the average working family go up under a Labour government?
Well, look, it is a lie. You're absolutely right to say it's misleading. There are revenue-raising measures in Labour's plans that we will put into public services, but they're not. I wouldn't describe them as taxes on households. They're things like, for instance, we will change the tax treatment of income for private equity executives. We will not have loopholes in the changes to the non-dom tax regime. We will put VAT and business rates on private education to put that into state education. But that's because everything we put forward, particularly in those first 6 steps, everything in the Labour manifesto will be fully costed. But that's not the same as increases on households, and I think you've dealt with that admirably this morning when you've pointed out that information from the Conservative Party is a lie and is misleading.
I'm still not quite clear, though. So can you promise or can you assure working families that taxes will not rise for them under a Labour government?
Well, if we were to form a government after the general election on the 4th of July, we would inherit the government's spending plans. Now, I'll be candid, there are in those plans tax rises. I mean, the personal allowance we all get in terms of our income tax, that is set to be frozen for several years. So we are ambitious about how we think we can grow the economy to give people better times ahead. But I will be candid and say those are the plans that we would inherit. But that is not the same as the false claims the Conservative Party have put forward. And I would just say on the wider point around tax and spending plans, if the economy were to be as stagnant, as flat as it has been for the last few years, of course there'd be tough times ahead. But we've got in the Labour Party a set of really ambitious plans in our manifesto, practical things that would make the economy grow faster, would perform better. We're launching today, for instance, our small business plan, tackling everything from late payment for small businesses to how business rates work, to how government should open up procurement to let SMEs have a fairer share of that. Let's not accept the poor performance of the economy under the Conservative Party cannot be changed, because it can and it will under a Labour government.
I understand what you're saying, but it is in contrast to what the leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, told Channel 4 News this week, that Labour has no plan to increase taxes for working people. You seem to be refuting that.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm acknowledging that the Conservative spending plans, as they stand, the financial plans for the country, do include, for instance, things like the freezes to the personal allowance. But Keir is absolutely right to say there'll not be additional taxes under a Labour government when it comes to things like income tax or VAT. We've been very, very clear on that. We have said where we would raise revenue, as I've described, and we think that's necessary because some public services need an immediate injection of resources. But we've been clear on that. We've said what our plans are, how we would raise the money to do that, and we acknowledge that taxes on working people are at a high level. They're at a historically high level, and it's not, frankly, because public services are doing well. It is because the economy hasn't grown. It's been really poor over the last few years, so we want to address that, but there'll be no additional taxes on households under a Labour government.
I understand that the Labour manifesto has been thrashed out over the last 24 hours or so. The BBC is reporting that Unite, which is one of the biggest unions to back the Labour Party, is not endorsing the party's manifesto. Can you tell me why?
Well, you're right to say we have agreed our manifesto. It will be launched next week. It is a set of pro-business, pro-worker proposals that were accepted by acclamation yesterday in that meeting. Where individual unions have a disagreement on certain aspects of policy, that is for them. But look, we have got in there, yes, a set of proposals
Sorry
that
to
would
interrupt.
make the investment climate in the UK, the business climate
Jonathan
better.
Reynolds. Apologies for interrupting, but I do just want to kind of pin this down. It is up to the unions about whether they agree or disagree with your manifesto, but the fact is it's one of the Labour Party's biggest backers as a union. So it is an important voice to be heard and acknowledged. And when it's reported that Unite doesn't endorse the manifesto plan, saying it doesn't go far enough on protecting workers' rights and jobs in the oil and gas industry, surely that is a voice that you will be listening to.
And we do, and we did in that meeting. On our package for workers' rights, there's a comprehensive package for greater security in the workplace. So we're not just getting the economic growth we want to see, we're seeing it in a way that will benefit working people in every part of the UK. I understand what Unite have said, specifically their concerns about the future of the North Sea and our policy not to have additional oil and gas licences. We've got to acknowledge that whatever the future of those additional licences, the North Sea is in decline. We've got to get the transition right. Again, there is a set of proposals in the Labour manifesto that will do exactly that, to not repeat, to be frank, the mistakes of the past under previous Conservative governments when you've had these transitions. But the manifesto as a whole is a set of pro-worker, pro-business proposals that do improve the investment and business climate so we get more business investment in the UK, but do give people greater security in the workplace. And it is a set of genuine, costed proposals that will give people real change in the UK, and I think that is what they want.
In 2019, the Unite Union gave £3 million towards Labour's election campaign. Have you had any assurances that that figure will be matched this time around?
I haven't, to be frank. I don't deal with that. We don't set policy based on what donations or income are from any particular quarter. We do a set of proposals, as we have done, that are about answering and meeting the challenges that the UK faces. In this case, in my agenda, on the things you're quite rightly asking me about, it will improve the business climate, it will improve things for small and large businesses, it will give workers more security, and it will get the transition right. That's why we're very proud of what we're going to put forward. It's real change for the country, but it's not change that can't be described or can't be accounted for as to how we will do it. Real roadmap to the national renewal that the UK needs.
Of course, yesterday we saw leading figures from the 7 biggest parties in the BBC election debate. There is also an invitation from the BBC to all the party leaders for an interview with Nick Robinson. All parties have agreed a date except Keir Starmer. Why has Keir Starmer not agreed a date?
Well, we're in the process of agreeing all the hustings as part of this election campaign. I'm doing that in the business space. I think Keir has laid out admirably the debates he wants to have with the Prime Minister, and we've already had 2 of those, got another one coming at the end of the week. So I don't think there's any shortage in that, and if any further details are being arranged, that's fine. But we are very confident, we're very pleased, to be frank, with how those 2 debates have gone so far, with Keir against the Prime Minister, and then with Angela as our Deputy Leader, talking to the country again about the real change the country needs last night in that 7-way debate.
Does he not think it's important to be scrutinised by a political journalist, as all the others have agreed to do?
Well, of course he does. That's why he's taking part in all of these. I'm not sure why.
Will he agree a date,
what the process is for that final one, but well, I'm sure that's being negotiated right now. I'm obviously dealing with the business hustings and the economic part of those debates and hustings that would take place. I'm sure that is in process, but look, they're already taking place. There's more coming. There's no shortage of these, and we're very pleased at how they've gone so far and how they will go in future, because the change the country needs can only come from a Labour government. You know, we've got 7 parties on stage last night, all with different agendas, but it was Angela speaking to the country, candid answers about how we can deliver change and how Labour can be the vehicle for that, and we'll continue to do that throughout the campaign.
Jonathan Reynolds, Shadow Business Secretary, Labour candidate for Stalybridge and Hyde, thank you very much for joining us and for dealing with the sirens as well in Westminster. There is a full list of candidates standing in Stalybridge and Hyde on the BBC News website.